Well, here I am, just minding my own business when this comes across that the UN has decided that it's necessary and acceptable behavior to meet with nutbags like Anita Sarkeesian to talk about women's issues on an international level. Because I'm sure that what happens to Anita Sarkeesian is just as bad as what happens to all those poor women in third world countries. Well, let's just get right into it. I don't really know how to justify the video I'm seeing. Mostly I'm just doing it because I had to I had to respond to it in some way that's just so outrageously over the top. Here we go.
Two-thirds of the world, but let's come down to a very individual level. Let's talk to Anita and Zoe. Zoe, perhaps.
Yeah, let's.
You first, in your personal and work environment.
Please go on.
What have you witnessed
Yeah.
as being most effective in addressing this kind of violence against women?
Apparently, contacting the UN is the only effective method, going all the way to the top. Well, global middle management, really.
Who works in tech and somebody who runs Crush.
Yeah, UN, get on those mics.
I think the only direct victims assistance and crisis center for people who are currently under online abuse.
In all seriousness, they've missed their mic cues like 8 or 9 times. The person starts talking to a hollow-sounding room, and then they finally kick the mics back on. It's very professional.
As well as a victims advocate group, we've handled, I think, over 1,000 cases since we launched in January, and we're staffed entirely by people who have been through this. We deal a lot with triage, so people come to us when things have already gotten to the worst.
Triage. Cyber triage. As Milo pointed out, cyber being a word which means not real. It's cyber triage you're talking about. You're not a nurse, you're not a doctor, you're performing cyber triage.
And I can tell you right now that one of the most effective things we see is an active and humane response on tech partners' side. That is one of the most effective things, and it's also often sorely lacking. This requires proper moderation, which takes into account things like intersectional feminism.
Okay, so you have to use, in particular, our form of religion to ban free speech. Yeah, these guys are going to get along great with Islam.
So terms of service, taking into effect things like the fact that trans women often face a very specific type of violence called dead naming, where people post pre-transition names in an effort to intimidate, harass, and endanger their lives.
So what? I go under a fake name because people will post old photographs of me when I was a convict. What's your point? I don't get used to it. That's the internet. People are shitty human beings. I don't get to go to the UN and cry about it because my previous personality can haunt me. I mean, get the fuck used to it.
Things like they need to be trained in things like the way domestic violence can manifest online, because
it can't.
The viral nature of the internet can take all of the goodness about things like marketing, things like grassroots activism, and apply it to domestic abuse just.
Oh, geez, having weapons turned against you is hard.
As easily as you saw in my case, or maybe you didn't, but yeah. Well-trained responder.
Well, at least she admitted to being completely self-centered there.
And that's not just in tech companies, but as well as law enforcement, that don't end up re-victimizing the person dealing with this, as is so common in domestic abuse and other sorts of abuse, which is also, again, not often found. And supportive social networks that don't downplay what's happening, that don't tell them to just get offline and hide, which we've seen in cases like Kathy Sierra's, doesn't actually even work.
Okay, I'm actually not familiar with the Kathy Sierra's case, but if getting offline didn't work, then it wasn't cyberbullying. And I mean, really.
This is both friends, this is family, especially people who are supervising children, trying to take away their internet access can take away their only support networks, and is actually quite damaging. Employers.
The internet is damaging them, right?
Because a crucial part of online abuse is often the target will be.
And for the record, we're not saying get off the internet. You can change usernames everywhere in the world. You can just make a new account and not associate with the people that were bothering you. It's not hard.
Inundated with requests to be fired from their employer.
Oh, like feminists do? About guys wearing the wrong t-shirt or making a less than favorable joke?
Mental health professionals, because oftentimes these sort of things will not be taken seriously. One of my own agents,
You don't deserve to be taken seriously.
I had to call his healthcare provider because they thought he was schizophrenic, that people like me didn't exist, and that a bunch of anonymous people doing this to somebody wasn't possible. In terms of prevention, education about even just digital self-defense, since we are so far behind on this issue, can keep
Vestigial self-defense? What?
people safe. Whether that's training people on what doxing is, which is when people find your home address and post online, encouraging further action against you or to intimidate and harass you. Things like swatting, where people call in false police reports to your local department, hoping that
That's pretty much never been done against you dumb fucks.
there will be people erroneously dispatched to your location to harass you further. Just basic things like digital security. A lot of people probably, and maybe even in this room, probably still use the same password for everything, and in 2015 we had no excuse to keep doing that.
You're right, you don't. Fucking stop it. What's wrong with you? That's your problem. Why is this on the UN's fucking... I don't understand how this even ended up here.
We also need to see, again, these effective terms of service that take all of the different ways that different people from different layers of marginalization or geographical location experience online harassment. We need people that are actually belonging to...
Why? Why do we need to break it all down? Why is not all harassment the same? Why isn't it all at least categorized in some... I mean, we've seen the charts. The only thing that women receive more is sexual threats. Men receive more of everything else. I've received terrible threats from the fucking ridiculous Judeo-blacks that I've made fun of. Do you think I care? Do you think I think they're actually gonna come get me? You've gotta be kidding me. They're laughable jokes, just like all the trolls bothering you.
Ethics, working in these departments, so it's not just an echo chamber of a bunch of people that are already in tech deciding what happens to the rest of us.
You act like they're evil overlords. Oh, fantastic, you fucking twit.
Proper legislation that talks to people like me and people that live on and work online, that doesn't destroy vital things like anonymity, which may seem like a big, bad, scary thing since a lot of people do use it for harmful purposes, but it's also the thing that protects activists like me.
So, what's your solution exactly to people being trolls on both sides? I mean, that's like one side complaining in ancient medieval times that the other was using mercenaries. Like, but you've got mercenaries.
It's the thing that protects people that have mental illness from the stigma that speaking out about it comes with, so that they can find community. It's...
Oh, you mean like the pedophiles you're defending?
A thing that helps people that are discovering their own gender identities and their own sexualities talk with other people.
Yeah, their own sexualities. Like the preference for children.
Without fear of reprisal, and often violent reprisal. So making sure that people who live and work online and understand these nuances are involved with every step of this is crucial. Otherwise we'll see more embarrassing statements about series of tubes in governmental bodies. We need people to actually enforce their own terms of service and shut down bad actors, bad faith websites. There are numerous places that host non-consensual pornography and make a profit off of this. There are...
Well, non-consensual to be posted.
Individuals on services like YouTube that have made a living off of abusing people like Anita and I, who monetize this, who see them up.
Sargon, I think they're talking about you.
Who aren't anonymous, who raise their funds this way to continue attacking, stalking, and harassing us because it's...
What does it tell you that they don't need to be anonymous?
The cottage industry at this point. And all of these things need to be taken into account and might be difficult to understand from the outside. So if there's one
That's
thing
because it's silly
take away
and niche.
from all that I can push for is please involve people who are in tech doing this work already in every step of the way. It
I'm so sorry, Zoe. We on the other side beat you to it.
requires all of our, like, so many different prongs. The three-pronged approach is absolutely correct. And it just involving tech literacy at every level is super important to make sure we don't move in a wrong direction and with the best intentions at heart.
Would want to practice wrong think, now would we, Zoe? Oh, he's on the fucking spot with the mics there.
So Zoe, you established a sort of peer-to-peer counseling group.
A wine box.
And the word that came out at me was humane. You would assume most peer-to-peer companies would have this, right? But clearly that's not the case. Now, you say you've had 1,000 people since January, yes? Tell me a little bit about your catchment area and this 1,000, like who makes up these people that are coming to you?
First and foremost, 1,000 people is like nobody. It's like nobody. You could get 1,000 people to sign up to butt-fuck cattle. I mean, you could get 1,000 people to pretty much do anything, given a large enough population. Get the mic up.
Putting out guides
There
if
we
we find
go.
ourselves having the same conversation. So when I say about 1,000, that's just one-to-one actual casework. So often it's women. It's almost universally marginalized people. We get a lot of Black Lives Matter activists get harassed pretty egregiously, and you can tell that.
Okay, they started it, to be fair. They started harassing people. No one is going around starting that shit. They're the ones that started with the bullshit. Trust me, as someone that got trolled by them.
That with every layer of disenfranchisement comes with more difficulty and also different difficulty. So it's a number of people I can
Just say it. Special difficulties. Super special snowflake difficulties.
tell you that most of the cases that we've seen where like a straight white cisgendered able-bodied man living in
You mean Satan? I've been told that. Go ahead.
the U.S. will be over far shorter than a trans woman of color even living in the same country. And that often the attacks are far less deadly as well.
Well, that's because these people are fundamentally unstable anyway, so if you attack them about their already not wholly held belief in their own persona, then yeah, you're going to get a lot more suicides in these communities. I really don't see Black Lives Matter activists offing themselves regularly, so I think you may be overstating it there, but...
Because a lot of this involves trying to push people to suicide.
Okay, no. Saying kill yourself on the internet has just become the internet's equivalent of fuck off. It doesn't actually mean kill yourself, and if you internalize that, it's because you're weak.
I mean, that's what they did in my own case. I sat for 2 weeks in a chat room silently recording them plotting how they would do that, because nobody else seemed to understand that this is the way this works, and it took often the onus of proving this and explaining it falls on the victims, and that's something that really needs to change going forward. So when I
God forbid you have to prove that something occurred.
say humane, it's stuff like that. We shouldn't have to keep fighting to, when anybody could just go look at my Twitter mentions right now, where people are impersonating my friends to tell me that I'm, to basically use gendered violence slurs against me.
The irony being, few of those people will probably be your ex-friends because you've become such a monstrously shitty human being.
That's my day-to-day. And it shouldn't
It
be
should
on
be.
people like me to have to prove this.
It is on you to prove it, because we've seen your tweets and they're jokes.
Anita.
Oh, the
with
queen
your
bee
work with
herself.
feminist frequency,
You hear the deference that she's given?
how do you interpret a multi-level approach to working on these issues?
The same way she approaches the multi-level approach of her hair and makeup.
Yeah, so Feminist Frequency is a nonprofit that I run where we look at the way women are represented
Non-profit.
in the media. And by doing this work, I have been the target for 3 years nonstop of egregious
That's not fair. We sleep.
online harassment in all levels. I think it's important to recognize that harassment is, as someone had mentioned, it's not just what is legal and illegal, right? Harassment is threats of violence, but it's also the day-to-day grind of you're a liar, you suck, you know, making...
Anita, you're a liar and you suck. I mean, this stating facts that make you sad isn't harassment, I'm sorry to say. Because you are a liar. You regularly misrepresent things to serve your purposes, and you suck at reviewing video games and making video games, so I'm really not sure what we're doing here.
all of these hate videos to attack us on a regular basis, and
You're
the
welcome.
mobs that come from those.
I don't have any
videos,
mobs yet. I'm
etc.
working on it.
And so, you know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about online harassment and
I would say you spend most of your time thinking about online harassment as it's what you do for a living.
what we can do about it. And I think something that's really important to understand is that, you know, we know this, but I think it's worth saying that sexism and misogyny did not start with the internet.
Really? Did it? Are you sure? Because the way you react, it appears as though the only forms of sexism and misogyny that exist are digital forms, mostly made up to harass asswipes like you.
Right, it's been around for a long time, and feminists for decades have been challenging these male-dominated systems. So what
They've also been begging for the right to vote while not wanting to go to war, but, you know.
we're seeing is that the internet is providing new ways to commit the same types of violence, right? And so understanding that this is a cultural, that we really need to see a big cultural shift in how we deal with this, and
Oh, you're causing a big social and cultural shift in how we deal with this, just not the way you want it to go. How about everyone just becomes anonymous so that you can't really pull people's features out and complain about them? That would be able to show true meritocracy instead of being able to cry, oh, I'm being harassed because I'm a certain sex or race or whatever. Doesn't matter. Everyone gets harassed. It's the name of the game. It's par for the course.
we can take note from activists that have been doing this work previously.
Please stop calling yourself activists. You're not fucking activists. Most of the people with Black Lives Matter aren't activists. They're either people that are on a hashtag or people that take advantage of that hashtag to further break the law.
Or have continued to do this work while acknowledging how technology is changing the face of current day sexism and misogyny. So, creating a cultural
You think Zoe took out her phone so it would be caught on camera and she'd get paid by the company? Because she's that kind of shield, so.
shift, I think, it takes a great number of approaches, and we've been hearing a lot about systemic change, and that makes me really happy, because I think that that's really how we have to do this. And so one of those approaches is
So, systemically change it in your favor instead of in the most balanced way that has come naturally and organically to society. Fantastic.
I think that the online social media sites and the places in which we are engaging on these large platforms really need to step up and change the way that their systems operate.
She's about to go into policing. I legitimately haven't seen this video, but she's going to say that the onus for self-policing is on the companies.
So it's not enough that they simply put Band-Aids on the problem areas, that they need to completely reimagine what their systems look like in
Band-Aids are not enough. Kill the animal and replace it.
order to build sites that actively deter online harassment, that make it harder to do this. We're not going to go and convince every single person who does horrible things online to stop doing those things, but we can make systems that actively deter that kind of behavior, which would make a
You already have that. You created block bots. You've got the ability to manually hit block when you're being harassed. I mean, what do you want here? You want all of these sites to constantly track accessors' IP addresses so you can only make one account per IP address? Because if you knew anything about the internet, you'd know that would stop people for about 3 days until everyone started using VPN services and switching those around. And then you'd be really fucked, because what would happen is people would have IP addresses fake logged, and then when they went on to use their service, they would say they had been blocked or weren't able to use an account. You don't get it, do you?
huge impact on the lives of me and so many other people who are being harassed online.
Because it is all about you. I like how you always started with me. You can't even say the selfless, realistic line if you were trying to get some pity here and say how I can help those being harassed online. It's how I can help me and those being harassed online. I see you.
So what we have right now is women are forced to build a fortress around themselves with the measly tools that we have online.
The same tools that are provided to men.
So we are being punished for people harassing us, and, yes, period.
No, Anita. We're being harassed for the people who are harassing you.
And I think that that's a really big problem, and so we need to really
I agree. I think you are a really big problem.
think about how we create this larger cultural shift, taking into consideration society at large, taking into consideration tech platforms, taking into consideration laws, so that people, like all people, can engage online. And
I like how she threw laws in there kind of last, so it wouldn't be apparent that she was talking about potentially changing laws, in spite of the fact that she started this by saying it wasn't about legal and illegal. You're a shit. You know that, right? You're a total shit person.
fully participate without fear of intimidation and violence.
Nobody lives with that. Aw, did you see how she had to look over for approval? That was so cute. Like, are we done? Are we done? Are we good?
I'll come back to you later, but
Please
let me
don't.
just take from what you're saying and go to Madeline. Madeline, as Anita said, it's systemic. We have to be working on the cultural side of things. But so much of our culture now is informed by entertainment. How do we work, or you've been working, in the entertainment business looking at changing culture? Maybe you could speak to that.
So our work has focused on messaging that our youngest children are seeing, mostly in mass media, TV and film, because what we have learned is that children under the age of 8 are really consuming upwards of 2 hours a day of programming through a television set and not so much on the internet. So our